you go.
So I'm talking to Biggie the other day, and he's writing away, and then he writes a message to somebody else in Swedish or something, and then comes back and writes to me in Swedish as well.
Dutch.
And I'm like, what? The Dutch? Huh?
Yeah.
The curse of conversations in multiple languages. I know that.
Yeah, and multiple time zones. Well, also sometimes this is the nature of the world that we work in, and the collaboration of international communication. It's interesting. We have wonderful faux pas.
Well, at least they don't speak Sparabench where you're at. That's a combination of Spanish, Arabic, and French, all at the same time.
Wow. Oh, that's what they got in Morocco, I'd imagine.
Oh, yeah. None of which I speak, so.
He does okay. He gets by with Spanish.
I've just giggled with Mel that all three of us are dressed in black and gray.
We planned it that way.
Okay, I bought the socks and cat leaves then.
It was whole show I did.
Oh, you guys are so funny. Okay.
It's easy to laugh and giggle.
That's why people keep asking me, because all the people in the one room, Brian, are you okay? They're sending me private messages. I'm like, I'm fucking great. Like, it's all good. There's nothing to be sad about, you know?
Good.
Clearing.
Because it's been noticeable, Brian, you've not been posting as much on your well-visited newsroom on Facebook. I'm one of these people who notice everything, the trends and the frequencies at which people do things. It's sort of all somewhere registers and is memorized. And I have noticed you've not blogged as much on there, which is, I think there are some other sad people like me out there who probably notice the same thing. So it's good to hear that you're in a good space.
Well, Alstom kind of took the internet ability out from under us for a few months. I've been more in there the last few days since coming over to this part of the country. But I still keep an eye on what's going on in there, and there's a lot of people, a lot of good people in there posting good stuff.
Yep, there is. I love your newsroom. Actually, it's one of the.
Well, my newsroom loves you.
I go in there regularly to check out what's going on there. I always check out when I get a notification. Just wanted to get this officially started, since I guess I'm hosting this one, and I'll be posting this one as well. And I'm really grateful that you guys have taken the time out to come together and talk to me about some of the things which I guess need to be aired in the public realm, because there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of things that have been left hanging, and I'm really grateful for the time you've come together to discuss this. So I think it's pretty difficult to know how to go at this in a linear fashion. I'm going to go over to Lisa and let you get started on the beginnings of the story.
Oh, thanks. Okay, no. The beginnings of the story. Actually, for those who follow my personal blog, the Lisa M. Harrison blog, they would know that I posted 3 stories, 3 parts to a story, which was kind of going back and trying to tell the story of this last year or so. But I needed to go way back. And I got to the point where myself and Brian and Dee, Heather, American Kabuki, and a bunch of us went off into the desert last year. We all came together in Morocco at Heather's invitation to come and actually meet up in person. And we did that, and we all spent roughly a month, some 2 weeks, in Morocco, in Tangier, with her and her family. And that culminated in a trip out into the desert, which was pretty amazing for all of us. And then Bob and Brian and I went home. Dee stayed in Morocco. And Bob, Brian and I kind of just got on with things and went back to our shows and doing what we do. Dee was staying in Morocco. Her plan when she originally went there was to stay there for 12 months, as far as I know. And we found ourselves, Bob, Brian and I found ourselves in a situation where we started off with a radio audience that very quickly evolved into a community, which then evolved into a real online family. And we were encouraging them to meet up with each other and come out from behind their keyboards and, start having real relationships with one another, because that's what we found made a profound difference for us personally, was actually, and because we spend all our times behind keyboards, everything is everything's virtual, these relationships are virtual, and for so many in the audience too, it was, those radio shows were their time to feel connected, not feel alone. And then they would have that 2 hours where they could just feel like they weren't crazy and people understood them and people understood, spoke the same language, and then they'd go back to their lives where they pretended they weren't who they were. So we were encouraging that to happen, and sort of around, I guess, August, September, there was this amazing group in North Carolina in the United States who came together and did this, and it was incredible. They pulled out a lot of people. They had a connection with each other and created these relationships that were just amazing. And we sort of thought, this is it. This is what people are looking for and longing for. They really want to make these connections. And from that, the Opal Tour was born, which involved myself, Brian, and Bob predominantly, and then this whole support crew who some radio show hosts or had something that we felt that was important to bring to the table, to go on a tour across the United States. And we pulled that off in record fashion. We announced it and we were on the road in like 6 weeks or something. It was amazing. And as we got to the end of that tour, I think it was our second last stop in Florida, there was a call from Heather Tucci, Gareth, from Morocco. There was an invitation, how does Moroccan sound for dinner? And there was some information in terms of that she had information, essentially, on what the Opal Tour was really all about, what it achieved, who was really behind it, who really financed it, all these sorts of things. Now, as far as Brian and Bob and I were concerned,
Dinner in Morocco. That's where you left off.
I was kind of like this.
Okay. So we got a cryptic sort of invitation from Heather Tucci in Morocco saying that, how does Moroccan sound for dinner, and that she had data or intel essentially on what the Opal Tour achieved, who was behind it, and who backed it financially, and this was information that we essentially would like to know in order to assist us in making decisions for ourselves on what was next. As far as we were concerned, we were behind the Opal Tour and the public funded it. But of course, when you're getting public donations and, they're just PayPal donations and it's Joe Blogs, you don't know, ultimately. Excuse me. So for myself personally, I was supposed to fly back to Australia on the 19th of December at the end of the tour. And thanks to, which I think they're getting again this year, incredible snowstorms on the East Coast, flights were cancelled and flights were delayed, airports were closed, and I was on buddy fare, standby flights. So I couldn't get home. And it was clear that I wasn't going to get home until at least the 4th of January, because that's when they opened up again for buddy fares. So in the meantime, I stayed with Bob in Pennsylvania, spent Christmas there away from my kids and family, and spent it with Bob and his. And in that time, we sort of weighed up what to do next, because there was a lot of requests, and in some cases a lot of pressure to continue the Opal Tour in various countries. Australia really wanted us to come there next. The northern states of the US, there were parts of Europe. There was just, come here, come here, come here. And we were exhausted. We really were. It's not easy to do, to sort of herd. I called it herding stray cats. In fact, stray, feral, rabid cats half the time. This huge community across the country, it wasn't an easy feat. But because there were so many options about what to do next, and because we really did want answers, we decided to go to Morocco. The initial thought was that I would go to Morocco for 2 weeks, and Bob and Brian would go for 4, and then follow me to Australia, and we'd do the Australian tour. That was the tentative plan. When we got to Morocco, it took about a week and a half, maybe even close to 2 weeks, to actually have a sit-down conversation with HTJ and hear some of this intel, which boiled down to, in some ways, not a lot. Like, it did what it was supposed to do in terms of the tour. It brought people out, made them transparent, and there were bankers behind the people who made the donations, and they were setting you up to fail, but you didn't fail, you succeeded, and you don't need to continue with the tour if you don't want to. She then said that her plan was to start a community in Morocco, and she was going to bring out all of her DARPA boys. And by that I mean literally DARPA, all the technicians and the scientists who work in DARPA, who apparently are frustrated, and she was going to create this sort of space, a community space essentially, to bring out people who have been wanting to come out for a long time, out from under the cabal, or out from under the black ops and on all of the restrictions, to bring out the suppressed technologies and to bring out all of this stuff. And that certainly got everybody excited. And so it was the focus shifted from Opal Tour to creating a space for all of this to happen. We're talking about, based on what she said, this was people from all over the world who were dealing with all of the suppressed technologies, who were going to be able to come out safely. And she talked about people who were the good guys in the military. She had the support and the backing of the royal family in Morocco, that this was a place that it could happen because it wasn't one of the incorporated countries. It was a true monarchy. There was all of these reasons why it was going to be there, and the kind of people that were going to come. And they were just waiting for her signal that the place was created and safe for them to do so. So you can imagine that's a pretty exciting proposition. And so a lot of our energy went into that. For me personally, there was stuff going on in the background that meant that I couldn't get home. The flights that I thought I had, weren't there. So I kind of got stuck with no flights and no money. But when the talk of the community happened, Brian and I spoke to Dee. We rang Dee because Dee actually hadn't been in contact with us very much at all since our time in Morocco, and hadn't been in contact with Heather at all for quite a while. She was living in Malta at the time. We said, this is going to happen here, because Dee had her own plans for starting a community in Malta, and we really wanted Dee to be a part of this. So on that, Dee packed up her family again and came back to Morocco. On me and Brian giving her a call. So then this is where it gets into the realm of speculation, because it's really only in hindsight, when you look back on all of the events that have taken place over the past year, that you start putting the pieces together and start looking at potential agendas and motives. And by no means did I think this at the time, is what I'm about to say, but I do think it now. What I think now is that Brian and Bob and I were lured, you could say, to Morocco in order to take down the media platform, the 5D media network. I think it was a deliberate agenda. You can call it a job, but I think that's what it was. Everything that took place after that made absolutely no sense. What we found was all of the talk, the initial talk around what was going to get created there, just repeatedly, time and time and time again, nothing ever happened. And I think it kind of got out of control, essentially, because from the moment there was talk of this community, we put the word out.
Yeah.
And people came. And I don't think that was part of the plan. In really, really quick succession, within a couple of weeks, within two weeks, we had half a dozen people there.
We interviewed Ralph Ring.
Yeah, we had the Ralph Ring interview that went viral when Brian and Nick and I talked to Ralph Ring.
That's right. And we had people coming. And we had people announcing their commitment to come, to be a part of it. And I think that took things off track, to be completely honest. And so very, very quickly, a location was found, which, according to people who were already in Morocco with Heather prior, in the late, like November and December of 2013, this location had already been found. However, end of January, when we were looking for a location, it was like, oh wow, look at this! Never noticed this before. Which we didn't find out until recently. And this place, obviously, in the middle of nowhere, I called it the one donkey town, and it had no internet. It sounds like a great place to locate a media network. So, which we didn't know until we got there, of course. What we experienced, I mean, it just, everything snowballed, essentially. We moved in, we relocated to this town within a couple of weeks. Excuse me, Whitney and I, we'd already announced in a collaboration with Hope that we would host a QEG workshop. And then one of the other women there and I, Whitney, and found a house which was going to be which was and is an amazing space and would accommodate a lot of uses for the community. And we were there like 2 weeks before the QEG thing started. So bang, 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 you've got 70 odd people from all around the world, so many different countries, coming for this QEG build. And right on the tail end of that, which I think, I mean, my reference with time right now is just nuts, but like end of March, early April, I think it was, as people were starting to leave and, we got back down to the core group that was staying there long term. That's when things really shifted. Once a lot of the eyes were off, people had left, that's when the energy really, really shifted there. And you could say reinforcements were brought in order to change the energy of what was going on there, because what was going on there up until that point was really, really positive. And once the QEG build was over, our attention turned to, okay, so what's next? We've got all these things we need to do. Where's our DARPA boys? Where's the army? Where's these garbage burners? Where's the list goes on of all the things that were going to happen and weren't happening. And every time we wanted to try and initiate something, nothing would take hold. We just could not make anything work there. And it's difficult, you probably know too, when you're living in a country where you don't speak the language and it's very clicky. You need translators, you need go-betweens, you need people who have connections to do the work and make talk the talk and do that stuff for you. Well, a lot of that boiled down to Heather and her husband, and unfortunately, that meant that things just didn't go past them. And there was, whenever we did make connections, just, Brian was great at making connections. The guy meets people and, they love him and everyone wants to help him. But, and he got burned more than once. So it just became really, really difficult. And then I would say, and we all saw things that didn't add up, in terms of the person that is portrayed publicly and the one that you live with on a day-to-day basis. Not the same. But in August, I was finally able to get out of there in July, and I came home and I spent a month here at home, and my internal knowing was that I had to go back and I had to take my daughter back, my little one. Didn't know why, but thankfully I had the support of her father and he let me do that. And I now know why, which, if you ever have the pleasure of meeting Phoenix, she's a special kid, and she does things to people, the way people react to her and what she brings out in people, because she's so incredibly pure and she's got the most big, beautiful, clear, amazing blue eyes, and this kid looks straight through you, and it's like she just knows you, and she loves everyone. She just loves everyone. And I can sum the whole thing up in one demonstration, actually, by saying that we lived in a 3-story house, and Phoenix and I were on the top floor. Dee's family on the ground floor, Heather and her family in the middle floor. So every morning, there's 10 kids in this house, 11 kids, 12 kids at one point. Every morning when the kids got up, they would all congregate on the ground floor at front of Dee's place and hang out. And that's where they all met up. And every morning when Fee'd have breakfast, she'd go downstairs and she'd see Dee and she'd say, "Good morning, Dee," and give her a big hug. "Good morning, Mel," and give her a big hug. "Hi, Heather." This kid was scared of her. And she's not scared of no one. And through my daughter, I was able to see things that I wasn't able to see before. And so my inner knowing about taking her there was spot on. Because I didn't have a kid there, I wasn't privy to a lot of the family intricacies that Dee was and that Mel was. But my current position.
When you was just mentioning, obviously there's parts of this that I don't know from the beginning, right? And when you was just mentioning then that the invite from Heather was in, and she was basically singing about the fact that the DARPA boys were going to come in with all these technologies. When she asked me to move to Dakla with her, I'd explained the guy that I know in England that is unwilling to go public. I'd never seen any evidence with my own eyes, that he'd created a couple of machines. She wanted me to fly to England to get the blueprints off this guy who's really insignificant, with technologies I've never seen with my own eyes, completely contradicting all these people that she knows with all these technologies. She wanted me to fly to England.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. All right, this is good.
She's connected with all these DARPA boys, yeah.
So she claims connection to all the DARPA people. Does she actually have them?
She has since the very beginning.
Yeah, that's been one of her things.
Okay. Well, she's connected. She must be somebody.
And the one thing that she said over and over before we even got to Morocco was, so many times she talked about these, DARPA boy connections, and they're going to be coming out and they're going to bring out all this technology and we're all going to work with them and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And it was just one of those things that, again, it just never materialized. And not just didn't materialize, but in looking back, there was no backup to it. There was never any shred of proof that these people were coming, or that she knew them, or that there was anything more to this other than her just saying this is what was going to happen.
The significance of that is it wasn't a singular event. It was a series. It was a pattern of a lot of events and a lot of lots of talk and no follow through. But why don't we have Lisa pick up where she left off because she was on a roll.
Thanks, Lisa.
Okay, it left me in a position. What would I have been saying?
You were saying that you were feeling betrayed. And that you knew why you needed to come back with Phoenix because to help bring Heather out, basically.
And you started to say that there was maybe a little bit of a good side to Heather, and you think that we were affecting her.
It did. I mean, get rid of that. I know that it was my own internal guidance that wanted me to go back in August and take Phoenix back with me because she helped me see so much, through her eyes, and because of the effect she has on people and because of what she brings out in people. And there's a side note to that. Remind me to come back. Since leaving, I mean, I was always going to come back at this time. Yeah, I left at the end of October. I was only ever going to go back for 3 months. By the time I'd left, so much became transparent, and so much became just the whole situation there blew open, basically. And what I was saying earlier, and what Brian alluded to in the break, was that there was this pattern of behaviour of lots of big claims, lots of, in Australia we call them gunners. Heather's a gunner. I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, and nothing happens. There was a lot of that, and it was just this repeated pattern for months and months and months. And even though I do believe where I sit right now that bringing us there was a job, maybe one she got paid for, compensated for in some way, maybe. I don't know. That's speculation purely. I do think that we had an effect on her. That living in that environment with all of these beautiful, beautiful people, and they all are, and the people that it attracted, amazing people, had an effect on her. And I think she got off script. If she was on a job, she got off script on a number of occasions, and she did get close to us. So when she pulled away, when she got back on script, it was really, really evident. There have been we've all gone through a lot of emotions around this, because when any friend, or who's someone who you think is a friend turns out not to be a friend, or any friend leaves you feeling betrayed, is involved. And I've gone through it. I know the others have gone through it. One of the reasons we're talking to you is because transparency has been our catch cry for 2 years now or longer. And being as transparent as we can about what we've seen, what we've experienced, what we've felt is, we have to walk our own talk in this, So I don't even know how to put this, but obviously perspective can change based on data that becomes available. And that changes all the time because we're always learning something new. I would not be having this conversation 3 months ago. Towards the end there, it got really, really ugly. And what I said about coming back to, I'll give you an example. When we relaunched the network as the One Network, which, to clarify once and for all, is about oneness. It's about unity consciousness. Okay, that's all it is. As you know, we did a relaunch with Sasha and Heather, and I watched for 3 days really, really closely as she prepared herself to be that person that you see in that interview. It took a lot of work. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of hours. A very intentional meditation and work, whatever the hell she was doing, locking herself away in a room, preparing herself right up until we sat down, literally within moments before we sat down to press record. And if you look at that show, that interview, I barely said a word. And in one of my closing statement was kind of, it's been fabulous watching you two. I think I used the word play together, because that's what it felt like I was doing. This is not addressed at Sasha at all. But it was so calculated, so premeditated, and that almost divine being that you see sitting there through that interview, was gone when job was done, and you only saw it when it took some prep, when there was an audience, you know. And that's not the woman you woke up with. It's not the woman you lived with. It's not the woman you had dinner with. It's not the woman you did the dishes with. It's not the woman who you saw with her children. It's not the woman you saw with your children. That was purely for public consumption. And that honestly was a huge disappointment. I was like, really? And one of the things that I could not ignore, because I knew how pre-planned it was, I knew how predetermined it was and calculated it was in the follow-up show that we did. And this was clarification for me, because the energy in the house, I mean, there was 20 odd people living in over these 3 floors of this big place. The energy of the place had become so separate. How do you say that when you want to, separatist, divisive, all that stuff? It was really yuck. That it was absolute clarification for me as to where it was coming from, which was her. And it was when we were doing the follow-up show with Sasha, and it was just myself, Brian and Dee and Heather sitting on a couch in our living room. And there had apparently been an incident with my daughter and Heather's daughter days before, which nobody had witnessed. And Phoenix was too scared to tell me about it. She didn't want to talk about it. She was terrified of Heather. And I was sitting next to Heather, and there was a question that Brian asked, and he used this as an answer. And it was so irrelevant to the question, firstly. But as I'm sitting next to her, I could feel her, she's not looking at me, and I could feel the energy coming off her. And I knew in that moment that she had planned long before we started doing this to bring this story up. And it was a story about apparently my daughter beat her daughter. Now that is just something that she's never done before in her life, right? Never been a child before in her life. And apparently the circumstances were that Phoenix wanted to give her daughter a hug, and her daughter didn't want it to. So Phoenix bit her. And Heather goes on to explain that the way she handled the situation was to tell my daughter that if she ever wants a hug, if she ever needs a hug, that she can go to Heather, and Heather will absolutely gladly love her and give her hugs and all that sort of stuff. Now, this was the lamest answer to the question and completely irrelevant, but it was a personal dig at me. It implied that my daughter was starved of affection and love from me and actually needed to go around biting people to get attention or to get a hug, right? Now, if anybody's seen me with my daughter knows that ain't the case. And she couldn't look at me when she was talking, but it was the energy I felt off her at the time. And it's one of those, it was one of those funny little moments where one thing that doesn't seem relevant suddenly goes brrr, and connects all of these dots. And my eyes just went bang in terms of everything I had continued to give her the benefit of the doubt over. It was like, no more. I know what you just did. You know what I mean? So where do I sit right now? I sit with thinking that and feeling that, well, she's absolutely not who or what she pretends to be. That I think there is a side to her or a motivation to want to do the right thing, to be that person. But I also think she's potentially either handled in the way I mean the word handled, or delusional. And I have absolutely no doubts that taking down the 5D Media Network was the intent, that it was a job. And I'm very proud of Brian, Dee, Mel, for the fact that we all came out of this sticking together and determined to move forward with it and not let them win, not let them take us down. If that's the intent, if that was the intent. And I'm actually incredibly grateful for everything I've gone through this past year. I mean, it's been hard. And, you know, it's, I'm still paying for it in some ways. I don't know what the right term is. I don't want to use words like sacrifice and shit, because that's not right. But I've learned so much. I've learned a lot. And it's been painful, and it's been amazingly joyful, and it's been everything in between. And I've met the most incredible people. And I've made connections that I hope will last, you know, forever. And I feel that I'm building back up again, personally and professionally. And I'll be stronger and better as a result. And it's one day at a time. But my concern is right now, is to be transparent with everybody who took stock in anything we said based on anything she said. Because we saw firsthand. I mean, one of the things when the Filings and Heather first came on the scene, one of the things that struck me back then was that no one from this woman's life came out. No one from high school, no one from law school, no one who worked with her in law, no one, not even the frigging cleaning lady, and believe me, she would need one, came out to talk about her. So if nothing else, we are the first group of people who can say in current time, you know, it's relative right now, not when she was 8, but now, got up close and personal to see what this was about. And that's what we found.
That I'd like to kind of further elaborate on. Lisa talked about kind of the distraction, if you will, the bringing down the media team, so to speak. And I'm going to fast forward a bit to give people a little bit of an understanding, because I think for pretty much all of us here, as we had doubts, as we had these niggling thoughts in the back of our mind of like, something is just not right, you know, and you just, as everyone around you is smiling and happy, you kind of go, okay, well, I'm just going to lock this away. I'm not going to deal with it, until we had a moment that was so in your face that we all opened up and actually started really freely speaking from what we have been feeling. And in that moment, we had 12, 14 of us, and we all started sitting down. First of all, it started off as kind of like Lisa and I talking, and we spent like hours just sitting and talking. And then Mel and I talking, and then Brian and Lisa. And then all of a sudden, when these pieces started coming together, you're like, whoa, wait a second.
Pattern.
Yeah, like serious pattern. And then, so we kind of gathered everyone together in a neutral space. Like we left Ousham and we came to where we are actually right now in Restinga Beach. And we sat down and everyone started just pouring out pieces, what we had seen. And it was one of those things where we have pieces come forward that, like, for example, just as we were taking a break then, Lisa was talking about the whole beginnings of it, with Heather telling them when they first got to Morocco, oh, I've got the DARPA boys, I'm going to build this community, all the DARPA boys are going to come out. And while we're in the pause, Mel says, you know what, here's what I was told, and this was just recently, and so there's another piece comes forward, and it's just another piece to the puzzle. Anyways, there was a really big sharing of all of us really kind of bearing our souls of what our gut has been talking to us and saying. But not only that, also letting each other know the things that had been said to each other quietly and privately, that there'd been multiple conversations over months and months that Heather had with each of us individually, that was always said under the guise of, you know, I trust you, and I'm going to tell you this. That was the overall feeling. So it was very secretive. And then all of a sudden, when all of us came together and started talking about these conversations, it was like, are you shitting me? Seriously? That's what she said? And there was a lot of hurt. Lisa and Brian and Mel, there was times for a good month where there was a hurt that was so bad that you almost felt like you were drowning from it. And you'd come to the surface and we kept supporting each other and working our way through things. But it was very, very hard to hear from other people some of the things that were said. But getting back to where I wanted to start with this is, in hindsight, you can go back and look at incidences that have happened, especially over the course of this last year. And all of a sudden, there's a much bigger understanding. When we all got pulled back to Morocco, and like I said, me and my family, we had decided we weren't coming back to Morocco. It was kind of like, you know, at some point in time, either Nick or I would go back to go pick up the last bit of our remaining belongings in Morocco, but we weren't planning on coming back because of situations that had come up over the course of December and January, early January. We had made the decision, no, we weren't coming back. And then when all of this started, and Lisa and Brian and I started talking about this whole community, because I'd already gone public with my plans to create a community, because I was sick and tired of waiting around for someone to create this community. It's time for it, fine, then I'll do it myself. And it was so exciting. And it was like, Nick and I said, okay, fine, let's go back to Morocco then. Let's do it. Let's go back. Let's build this community. Because if there's a bunch of people who I know are able to pull this off, it's us as a group, Lisa and Brian and me and all the people who are coming out. And then things carried through, and like I said, we ended up with in a one horse or one donkey town. It was actually about 4 donkeys, but a one donkey town that had no internet. I mean, it was bad. I mean, people know. I mean, I just stopped blogging because there was no internet. But there was a subtlety behind it all in the fact of being told continuously, it's all done. You don't need to do anything anymore. And Brian stopped writing. I stopped writing for the most part, and some of that was definitely internet issues, but a lot of it was also when you're continuously day by day being told, oh, it's all done. We need to work. We need to focus here.
Well, we even told specifically to go dark.
And that was exactly it. Heather came up with this big plan right after the QEG finished that everyone would go dark. No one report anything. And we listened to her kind of her explanation of why she felt we should do this, and we all went, okay, we'll go dark. And we went dark, and we literally stopped talking on pretty much on Skype, on Facebook. There were no blog posts went out, nothing.
No radio shows.
No radio shows. We stopped everything. And now we look back in hindsight and go, oh, well, that really played out well, didn't it?
The crazy part is it made sense at the time.
And it did, because she spun this tale of the reason why we need to do this, to draw out all, because, if we go dark, then they've got no intel. They have no intel. They will have to come find out what's going on. And all the way through everything that we've experienced, one of the things Lisa said was the fact of the public persona didn't match up with what you felt face to face. And one of the biggest things for us was, I think I speak for everyone on this, is that while she continuously talked about oneness, in the background it was a continuous separation being pushed. And it was when I was in Tangier, and Brian and Bob and Lisa and all the rest of the gang had left and gone back to their homes after the first time we'd gone to Morocco, there was a very overt push to separate me from the Opal tour. And the nuance behind that was, you don't want to be involved. You really don't want to be involved in all this. And for me, it was kind of like, oh, well, okay. And Lisa invited me. So Lisa was like, come to the Opal tour. Come just even do a couple of weeks with us. And I was like, yeah, no. But even since then, in coming back together, there has been a continuous separation been pushed, that various people have been separated out from the group. And whatever the story needed to be to place that separation there, the biggest one is of course, we all heard agents. They're an agent. If anyone did not fall into the plan of the moment,
they were an agent.
We were told over and over again that Bill, American Kabuki, was an agent because at that moment in time, Heather was really angry at him. And regardless of the personal there, because I'm not going to speak to that, but we were over and over, each of us individually and as a group, told Bill is an agent. Caleb is an agent. Any single person within the group, I got told that Mel was an agent. I got told that Brian was an agent. Seriously, Brian, an agent. Like, let's.
I am an agent.
Yeah. An agent of love. Yes. So.
He works for chaos.
Yeah. This was played out to the point of it became so in your face that by the time we got to like August, it was so, in your face that she would come out and Heather would say something like, da, 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 well, they're an agent. And you'd just be like, seriously? Look, it's now really hard to swallow. Like, it was one thing but basically, you're basically saying, Mel's an agent and her dad is an agent. And
you know how some people see reptiles under every rock?
Say again?
You know how you see some people, how some people see reptiles under every rock, Yeah. Well, she saw an agent behind every
time. And all the way through this, there was this continuous separation, even in the fact, like I said, the things that were said to us privately and individually were very much based on separation. It's like things that she said to me about all the other individual people who were in Auschwitz were very obviously, in my opinion, to drive a wedge and to create the separation. And it went on and on and on. Like I said, it wasn't until we had this big, when everything became so hugely visible, radically visible in such a massive way that we all sat down, and it's kind of like you shake your head and go, whoa, what the fuck just happened? And then you talk.
I would say there definitely were agents that turned up. The question is, who were they agents for? We never got a chance to investigate that because the implication was always they were agency and to steer clear and stay away. But I'm more inclined right now to feel that perhaps they were people who could potentially expose her. And that's why they were, summarily ejected. I mean, there were some that didn't add up. They were really, there was something fishy about quite a few people that turned up, especially during QED time. But,
definitely some agents that showed up during that. That we know.
That we know. But I have to state that she did in fact state to more than one person that Brian and I were brought to Morocco to fail. Now, why would a friend and even that, just a friend, why would a friend take nothing else knowingly want to put you in a situation like that?
Yeah. Can I say a couple things real quick?
No, you can't. Brian, you ought to be on mute the entire time.
First of all, I didn't agree to come on and do this interview to bash or throw mud at or even accuse Heather or speculate as to what Heather's agenda was at all. I refuse to do that. I wasn't really looking forward to this because I'm ready to move on with my life, and I already have. And the only reason that I agreed to do this and to share this was because I feel an obligation to everyone out there that I very could have possibly inadvertently misled with things that I was sharing on the radio and in the blogs. I mean, we ultimately became unofficially Heather's spokespeople. You know, we spoke on her behalf. I mean, she wouldn't say that, but she would tell us stuff and we would share it. I mean, that's really what it was. And during those 2 years, a lot of the time, people had a lot of really great questions. And on many occasions, and Mel, you could attest to this because you interviewed her yourself. You ask her a direct question, you get a very indirect, very elusive answer. And we pawned it off as Heather speak. You know, we justified it by saying, you know, Heather doesn't operate in this dimension. She speaks fifth dimensional speak, and almost shut people down when they had really good questions, and really defended her in a lot of ways. And looking back on it now, I feel really bad about that. And I want to clear the air, and I want to personally apologize. I sent out a few messages to people last night on Facebook. Just apologize because I was so in it that I didn't have the ability to see through the fog of what was really going on. And I still don't know what was really going on. It will become visible. Everything will become transparent. That's the way the universe works. But that started to become really clear when we were in Austin, when we were all living together. And when all of a sudden, in a lot of ways, it became very visible that all the questions that we had were also being dodged, sidestepped. And there was a point when after that interview with Sasha, where Heather became very elusive with all of us. It was like, and we haven't talked about this yet, but we've talked about it a lot as a group, where we couldn't even pin her down to have a conversation. We'd start to talk about something and ask very direct questions, and she would literally walk the other way, or put her head in her computer or whatever. And it was as if she knew that she was being seen by us for the first time. And her whole energy really started to shift dramatically. And I think that this is where we all kind of within ourselves started to ask questions. Things really weren't adding up. I keep telling people I made a business out of painting red flags white. And there were so many things throughout 2 years that I just put on the shelf that really became visible. And, you know, even just over the course of the last few days, it's hard for those that haven't been here present, firsthand experience everything that we have been witnessed with our own eyes, heard with our ears, and have been privy to in density. It's hard for people to understand. And that's why I've agreed to come on here and do this. Because at the end of this, what you're going to hear me say, and I'll just say it now, I don't need to wait till the end, is that I'm grateful in a lot of ways for what Heather has done, because I now have the privilege of working with Lisa as a result, and Danny, and Mel, and you, Mel V. And as a result of everything that Heather came to us and brought out, we've built this amazing team that really has the ability to do great things in the world. And I'll always be grateful for Heather for that. And that's what anchors me into where I'm at now, and why I'm not really upset, and why I've kind of been dragged through the mud in a lot of ways, yes, but just like Lisa said, I'm a stronger person as a result of it. But I also feel a responsibility to be that voice of transparency and just put it all out on the table with no secrets and no lies, because I really truly feel like that's the energy that we're in right now. And this is the best way to really inspire healing within ourselves and anybody else out there who may have felt misled. And also give them an opportunity to have that same kind of experience and have that same opportunity for healing. So that's just something I really needed to make sure got out there.
And that's one of the things I've spoken to from the beginning of all this starting to become transparent is I'm not going to, I refuse to stay in a place of anger and hurt and judgment. And I was there. I mean, I'm no bones about it. I was definitely spent quite a bit of time in that place. I take from it some incredible experiences that I would never have had. I met Brian and Lisa and Mel and so many incredible people. And we have come together as what I like to think of as a driving force for change and transparency. None of that would have happened had we not all been drawn to Morocco. So I am not going to dwell on the bad. And like Brian said, I literally yesterday, we were supposed to film this last night, our time. And I came really, really close to saying to Lisa, I can't do this. I'm just not even doing this. I am so done with paying energy into this aspect of it. But like Brian said, this is the transparency. And after at this point, I put this away now. And I'm not going to sit and I'm not going to talk about this. In my Skype room that I have, my one Skype room, a lot of this has been fully discussed over the last 72 hours. And a lot of energy paid to it. And I'm not willing to do that anymore. I've already paid months and months and months and months of energy to it. And I'm going to take from it the positive and the amazing things that I've learned and the experience I've gained. And all the rest is just, I'm putting it behind me and just moving forward with what we now have, which is such an incredibly strong bond with all of us. And yeah, be the change that changes the world. And that's what it is. Just move forward. Mel, you're muted. There she is.
Oh, there we go. Guys, you know what? It's just so lovely to hear you speaking. And, in so many ways, although I didn't go on the Heather Morocco journey like you guys have, I myself have been on my own journey with the projects I've been involved with. And I'm listening to you talk and I'm going, this is exactly what's happened to me. And I concur with what you say is that sometimes we need to go through these hard things to really bring together, the people that have the wherewithal to stand this. And the only way you can work that out is by going through a lot. How do you know who has the wherewithal unless you go through the fire with them? Yeah. And with that being said, it's brought us all together and it's brought a lovely team of people together and created an amazing awareness. And I had a conversation with Sasha Stone a little while ago, I think a few days ago. And I said to him that irrespective of OPPT and Heather and it's very much the same with the work that I did with Kevin Annett, where, he's a complete con, but the issues he stood for were very real, completely real. The children getting killed in the Indian residential schools, that's a real issue. I would never have known about these things if it wasn't for him. Okay, and this is what I recognize as part of the cosmic gauntlet that we all have to run to get to a point of convergence that we're at now.
I agree. I had this conversation with Mel just this morning. Was it last night? Time is irrelevant anyway. That we can point fingers and we can say, well, this person associates with that person. And, can we trust them? Or, you can point fingers at various whistleblowers and, the movies that thrive. Or you can look at it and instead of taking it apart and picking apart the irrelevance, you can look at the impact that piece that was brought forward had on humanity and humanity's awareness.
Yep.
I've said it for ages that there are people out there like, in my circles dealing with Intel, were people like Drake and even Keenan. Yeah. You know what? It's all, I won't even go there. But they brought forward very relevant pieces. And while they themselves are questionable, it doesn't change the fact that the pieces they brought forward, information, even just the opening up of people's eyes to a certain specific situation had a massive impact.
Yep.
So I'm not going to throw these people to the wayside. I refuse to. Even if you read an article, even if all you resonate with is one sentence in that article, maybe that's just the only one sentence that you needed to read.
Mm-hmm. So
you don't throw the whole thing away just because you don't like the word. For me, we all know I hate the word archons and reptilians, and I kind of go, it doesn't change the relevance of information that's coming out there. And if you keep your mind open to the fact of what you have learned from any piece, it's an advancement forward. It's a piece that you didn't know before.
What I keep looking at is one thing that we have in common is we all want to know what's truth. We're truth seekers. It's like a cliche to say, but that's really what we are. We want to know what's going on. Who are we? How's the universe work? What's my place in it? All the questions, all the burning questions that everybody inherently wants to know that, brings us all together. I received a doctorate level education in banking and in corporate governance and, all these things that really, I didn't really have a whole lot of awareness around. And it's like one of the questions that people are going to have, because, we've had them amongst ourselves when they watch this, they're going to say, well, what did those documents mean? What did they do? How are they legitimate? Was there an agenda? And those are very relevant questions.
Very valid.
But what I look at and what I'm looking at right now, trying to stay out of the realm of speculation, even though it's really hard to, is that look at what a tsunami of an effect those documents had, no matter the agenda, of people all around the world getting to this new place of understanding how things are working and understanding that it's really not about the documents. What happened as a result of all of this is that there was this wave, this tidal wave of empowerment. I am free. I don't answer to anybody but myself and my creator. And, that's a whole other topic of conversation. But I'm free, and I have the ability to now stand up for myself and not allow myself to be trampled on by this alleged perceived, authority or what have you outside of myself. Courtesy notices, people standing up for themselves in court, people standing up for themselves in exchanges with police officers. This is empowering shit. And those are the things I'm looking at right now. Is it created this global network of new levels of awareness that are so invaluable, and that have created so many amazing connections, relationships. How many people do we know that have gotten together and got married and formed relationships, and out of the result of coming together from all this information, just as many splitting up and breaking apart. That's a whole other conversation. But the amount of good that it has done, no matter the agenda, for me has just been absolutely profound. And that is where I'm focusing my energy personally. Mm-hmm. And for everybody that's watching this, I highly recommend that's where you focus your energy too, because the level of the empowerment doesn't go away as a result of this. If anything, be more empowered. It's the way my perspective at the end of the day is this. Things always get shooken up the most when you're on the verge of a major transformation. Yeah. And that's where we are. We've been on the verge of a major transformation. And this to me is a huge indicator that we've come a long freaking way. And we're doing a great freaking job.
Yeah. And it's about continuing moving forward. This is it. We have gained a huge new knowledge base. That cannot be denied by me, certainly. Now I have this extra chunks of knowledge. I'm moving forward and using that knowledge to bring forward more searches to find the relevance of my prime focus, which was, of course, the financial industry and government corruption. I have a better arsenal at my disposal now because of what I've been through. And I am fully going to use everything I've learned to keep moving forward and to keep bringing out the truth as I find it. Now, I will be a little more careful in how I word things as to not use absolutes. I apologize for some of the things. Like I said, I actually said this in my Skype room, that, I stand in responsibility for the fact that there's a lot of things that I talked about that I spoke in tones of absolute, that this is what it is, when in fact, you know what, it could very well not be, because I was just kind of repeating what I was told. I'm much more aware of that now.
I just want to reiterate what Brian was saying in terms of not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because what we've all gained, is huge. Don't underestimate it. That those filings, Heather said it herself many times on air publicly. They were not for the people. They were for the system. And if that's true, if we were never meant to hear about them, maybe it's because they were so empowering. Just a thought. If they were to notify the system because it was the system taking down the system, my thought right now is that if we weren't meant to know about them, it's because they are that empowering. And that's the effect that they had. They empowered a lot of people. They triggered a lot of us. They spoke to many of us. And I think as a global community who followed this whole story, we've all grown so much, with or without an agenda, with or without her being able to walk her public persona talk. I wouldn't start regretting anything you've done. If you've walked a path of empowerment as a result of those filings and as a result of what you've heard from her, don't start regretting that. Don't start second guessing it. Hold on to that. Okay, so how can I put this? Worst case scenario, whenever any disinfo agent comes on the scene, and I'm not saying she is, but I'm saying as an example, they've got to throw at least 95% of truth at you. And so worst case scenario, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at 90 to 95% truth. Or it wouldn't have had the impact it did.
Exactly.
She wouldn't have had the impact she had.
Yep.
The people around the world, even when English wasn't their first language, they got what she was saying. They felt it. Whether she was talking about bank and finance or whether she was talking about the energetics, you felt it. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, is all I'm saying.
Well, I think one of the things, Nick and I have had several, obviously, conversations on this, and one of the most pointed things he said was, whether she walks her talk in some ways is actually kind of irrelevant. The talk about responsibility and standing in full responsibility, and about oneness and about working together, you can't doubt that. That just is. So, I take that forward. And that's brought me to a new level of understanding of that too, about, yes, we are responsible for our actions. And yes, we are all one, and that we need to move forward this way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's why we're doing this, is so that we can say that we are trying to walk our talk.
I think one of the realizations that we've had that we haven't spoke to yet is we heard, and we've talked about this a lot as a group, we've heard the line so many times over the course of the last 2 years, it is done. It's all done. And what that implies is there's no more need to do anything because it's finished.
Sit back on your ass and stare at your navel.
So what happened as a result of that was, and I think that the reason why we were even open to the whole concept of going dark as a media team was because it was all done. And so what the result was an extreme amount of complacency that we're now all kind of coming out of and realizing,
shaking off.
Yeah, we're shaking it out. And that's where we realized that, okay, yeah, energetically, we have the 2012 and all that stuff. Yeah, a lot of it is done, but it's not all done.
No.
You know, there's still a lot of work to do. And if nobody does anything, what kind of progress are we going to make as a human species? 50% of the planet still lives below the poverty line, and there's a lot of human suffering going on everywhere in the world. And so I actually, my greatest level of empowerment is that realization, because I'm now more motivated and more charged and more driven to put my energy where I can make an impact and I can make a difference than I ever have been in my entire life. Yeah. And that is a gift. Mm-hmm. And that is a gift I truly hope to share with more people as the days and the weeks and the months continue. That will be a large part of my message. Be the change you want to see in the world. How can we inspire that in people to where it's not just a beautiful quote from Gandhi, but it's a way that we walk. It's a way that we do. It's a way that we join forces and collaborate on awesome things that we could do to make a true, effective, lasting, tangible difference on this planet. Yeah. And I'm grateful for that. And I really hope that message, the people that watch this, inspires people, because we are so freaking powerful, especially when we join forces and we collaborate in unity. And that's, as far as I'm concerned, the message moving forward.
Right, Mel, I think let's move on to you. It was a lovely chat with Brian and Dee in the last session, and I really got some good information out of that, and good to know where you guys are sitting. I think it creates a lot of perspective for people to understand where you're going next and where it's the place that it's coming from. And you've all come in with such different stories, and there's so many different experiences. I think I'd like to hear, Mel, and some of what you've experienced and put together through all of this.
Okay, well,
scoot over, darling.
Okay. When this journey started with these guys meeting up in Morocco, etc., I was actually in England, and I graduated from law school 7 years ago. I was completely indoctrinated. And in April 2013, I went to a conference on law and health. It was my first one. That was the day that I went down the rabbit hole. And that same day I was passed the foreclosure flyer. And energetically, when I was given that foreclosure flyer, it was like a light inside me switched on. It was, oh my God, this is it. I didn't even know what it was at the time. So I then went down the rabbit hole at rapid pace, alongside studying all the other lawful legal movements and the filings. I ended up taking my dad's house on, using those filings. I ended up taking a arrest warrant on for a fake crime with those filings. I organised, there was basically 2 visits from the bailiffs and the police. Both times I organised 50 to 100 people to come to stand up to the bailiffs and the police with the filings. We managed to get rid of the bailiffs and the police both times. The third time, 20 police and bailiffs turned up at 6 a.m. to my dad's house unexpected, threatened to throw my dad down the stairs, kicked my little boy and my dad out of the house. I then got arrested. And not long after, both me and my dad decided it was time to move to Morocco. Do I regret it? Absolutely not. The filings for me not only gave me a kind of like a leapfrog instead of studying the statutes within the UK and how to get around them and everything else, I was suddenly fully aware of the law on an international level and how it is all connected and how it all basically has already been the New World Order. They also gave me a leapfrog in the spiritual sense. The energetics that I've learned due to those filings, the empowerment and the freedom that I feel inside of me due to those filings, that's invaluable. Everything that Lisa, Brian and Dee have said, I completely agree with wholeheartedly. Obviously, I am a little bit concerned in relation to the agenda. We all are. We will just keep paying attention to the data that comes in.
Continue our research.
Yeah, continue our research. But since we moved from Alstom and we all realised and all voiced our concerns and all shared what's going on, the creativity, the love, the togetherness, the connection that we now have as a group brings tears to my eyes. It's basically feels like we're a phoenix rising. That's how it feels. And I'm grateful beyond belief. Truly.
I've got a little tear there, Mel. You know, this is the way I look at this whole thing, really. And in our previous conversations, Lisa, I said something which people perhaps don't recognize. With those pioneers who pick up a story and they go for it, and it's not just, okay, let me broadcast a story, and it doesn't really matter whether it's true or not, I'm just going to put it out there and whatever, but you've got this thing inside of you that wants to follow through. It's not just a story in the traditional newsy journalistic sense. This is something you feel within you, all right, that you want to get into. It's a purpose. It's more than just a job. And often you've got to make some very risky decisions, get involved with some people that perhaps don't turn out to be who you thought they were when you started promoting their cause. And I've had this happen to me again and again and again. The sad thing is the viewing public will turn and look at you and blame you for that. Dee, I use you as an example. Heather used you as a mouthpiece a lot to play her little games. I know I was the victim of one of those publications that were taken out of context. And really, I'm afraid, to me, it was the incident that showed Heather up for who she was. Okay, talking about transparency, not being transparent, promising me that the conversation would be confidential, then getting you to publish it through your blog, all of that sort of thing. For me, was things that started to add up. And I had a conversation with Brian about it last year about some of my concerns. And what we decided from that is, okay, well, we're not going to focus on the negative. We're going to focus on the positive, and that is we are going to focus on unity. That was the beginning of the Oakwood tour. And very happy to have gone down that route with you guys, because it was never a case of I ever wanted to fall out with anybody through my recognition of things not being right with Heather. Rather, I took a back seat and just let it unfold, because I tell you, I have absolutely 100% faith in Lisa Harrison as a person, as a spirit, as an eternal body of love and wisdom and light, and she is one of the best at what she does. And I knew in my heart that when the exposure, when the evidence was there, all right, that she wouldn't stand there and just go with the flow. She would say something about it. And I waited. And the same with you, Brian. I waited for you guys to actually go, okay, look, it's not all what it seems. And I was prepared to go, well, I recognize that because I've recognized it for a while. All right, let's talk about it. And I'm very glad that you've come forward and that you've spoken about it and you've gotten it out there. Because back to the point that I was making is that it takes a lot of courage to make that decision to go in and follow a story and get into things the way you guys have. Get up and move country, a hell of a lot of courage. And, people will look at you guys and blame you for the fact if the OPPT didn't deliver what it was supposed to deliver. All you guys did was follow that dream and push that ambition. And it takes a lot of courage, and you've got to get your hands in and get it dirty, and people will judge you for having that dirt on your hands as opposed to thanking you for doing the job that they didn't have to do. Okay, for getting your hands dirty when they didn't have to do it. And as a journalist, I completely get that because I've been in this situation so many times, which is why I have the greatest of respect for you guys for your journey, for everything you've done, the whole, everything from OPPT to Opal to One People to the One Network. Your entire journey is just something that's so inspiring. And I think what we see now is only the beginning, much greater things to come. You've grown strong through it all. You've learned who your allies are. You've learned who to trust through trial and error, through much of, as I've already said, a cosmic gauntlet. And I guess this is the convergence, really.
One thing I want to say real quick, Mel, first of all, thank you for that. We admire your work as well. That goes without saying.
Which is why we're doing this interview.
Yeah. You're the perfect person that, you know, when we said, oh, we'll do this with Mel B, I was like, okay. If it were anybody else, I might have given it second thoughts. But one of the things that Heather instilled upon us that I do very much resonate with is that everybody has a role to play in this big cosmic game called life. And everybody's playing their parts perfectly. And that goes for Heather too. And for everybody, you know, I truly believe there's no one job or role to perform that's more important or less valid or more valid than any other. And to that extent, this is all by design on some level, right? I mean, you either believe everything happens for a reason or you don't. And if you believe everything happens for a reason, how can you not be absolutely grateful for everything that happens, no matter how it shakes out? You know, because it brings about more self-realization and inspires more self-discovery and inspires on so many new levels. So to that extent, everybody is doing such a phenomenal job. But the most important thing for me is that the job isn't done. It's not done yet.
Yeah,
if anything, it's just freaking beginning. Yeah. And that's what I can't stress it enough. That's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, that is the prime excitement right now. And if you could be here with us right now, Mel, over the last month especially, the excitement level within all of us is built exponentially daily as each of us comes forward. We have plans of how we're going to move forward and what we're going to do. You know, the new network. It's like daily there's like, and then we could do this. Okay, well, I've got this story and I need to work on this story. And here's a piece that, you know, I'm going to bring in this person because this is really important and we need to get this out to the public. And it is a snowball effect. It is just this energy. Energy never dissipates. It just seems to grow. And the more excitement we have, the more creative we are and the faster we're moving forward, taking with us all the experiences that we've gathered along the path.
But yeah, that is absolutely it. I don't think you could just one day suddenly decide to, start a media platform without some kind of mileage, history, some kind of knowledge and spiritual growth and personal experience from which you can express yourself. You know, you don't, as much as we're all born, you know, eternal essence, beautiful creative beings, there comes a lot of going through everything that you've been through. And Mel, look at you as an example, all the things that you went through, all of those experiences, being arrested and all of that brings you to a point where you are now, where you're doing amazing things because of it. So, you know, out of the darkness comes the light. Everything, as you said, has its purpose. Everything. We have to accept that there is a purpose for everything. Nothing is by accident. It is by design. And with that in mind, I guess really try to maintain the beautiful attitude I've seen exhibited by you guys, which is that no matter what comes at us, we embrace it and try to take from it the things that'll bring us solutions to create a fair, sustainable world.
Yeah. Hallelujah.
There's so many things said there, and I kept saying, I want to address that, I want to address that, I want to address that, but then it kept going, and I've kind of lost track. But
Mel's got a notepad.
Thank you.
She's taking notes.
Yeah. Firstly, to Mel B for her thank you to your beautiful words, because yours and my relationship goes back quite a ways. And there's all, for as long as we've known each other, there's been a kind of kindred spirit vibe going on there, and you know, love and respect is absolutely mutual. So, Mel B has been an absolute God gift and a blessing, because I don't think we as a group would have come out of what we've come out of as cohesively as we have if not for her. She was an integral part of that. And in fact, she wasn't an integral part of that. She was like the single driving force of that. And she was, because of things that she was privy to with Heather, she saw things before we did. Basically, I'll say that. And she was able to preempt and pre-plan and create a space for us to
Fall back
really
to.
come together and
Get out. Escape to.
get the hell out of our
Get the hell out of Dodge.
And she's a blessing on a lot of levels, and she's an integral part of the network now. And in terms of helping driving, running, I mean, this is not a 5-minute job, as you know. Trying to run something like this. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for 5 years now, 6 years, something like that, and it's 7 days a week. It's 8, 10, 12-hour days, you know that, and it's exhausting. So having someone as on the ball as she is, in a lot of ways, I mean, she's legally on the ball, she's energetically on the ball, she's emotionally on the ball, she's mentally on the ball, and she's someone I can completely trust, and she's earned it, and she earned it really, really quickly. And I can't tell you how proud I am to move forward with those three. Yeah, I know it's a love fest.
It's a love fest, baby.
God.
I'm gonna cry.
Me too.
Stop it.
Oh, that's beautiful, Lisa. I think we're probably heading towards the end. Before we do that, I just really want to get, is there a summary of anything anyone wishes to offer, or anything that we've left out that is of importance for people to understand with regards to the whole experience you guys have had?
Do you have any questions that you think?
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Yeah, okay, questions. Obviously, people are going to ask the filings. Are they legitimate? Are they not? And do you believe they have any value for us going forward?
That is an ongoing search.
That is a $1 million
We've
question.
devoted tons and tons of time to it already. And it is something that we are very much actively researching.
For me personally, because I had this experience, I had a very tangible experience. That's this thing that keeps getting referred to by me usually as my beast vision, and that, I mean, I put stock in those filings because of that, and I, not purely because of that, but I mean, it played a big part. And I do feel that experience was genuine. I also feel that everything I've done in the last couple of years has been fueled by that experience. And I think the power of those documents is more. And I kind of think this is what I've said all along, actually, is more in its empowerment energetically to us. than it may be in the legal system. You know, legally, if you need a piece of paper to tell you that you're a human being with rights and freedoms, there's really no piece of paper that's going to tell you that in a way that will completely convince you. I think the power of those documents were in the energetics. But again, I'm gonna restate. That's where I sit right now, and that is subject to change. You know, given data. Do I think that they are harmful? No, not at this point. I don't. I think that everything that came after them. I mean, the courtesy notices, as Brian mentioned earlier, they weren't created by Heather. They weren't. They make reference to them, but they were created by others here in Australia, actually. And they were the thing. They were the piece of paper that people really used. People didn't go walking around with UCC filings. They walked around with courtesy notices. They walked around with foreclosure flyers. They walked and filed and handed out other pieces of paper that the people made up. And they were the ones that were equally as empowering. You know, when you handed a bank manager or a cop or a court official a foreclosure flyer or a courtesy notice, they took notice. You know, and the impact they had on the system may well have been more than what the original filings had on the system. I don't know at this point, because it was the people en masse handing those things in on behalf of themselves, as opposed to one person doing it on behalf of everybody.
Yeah.
You know? And knowing every country is doing it, that's huge.
Another thing that I can add here is that as a result of the courtesy notices and the massive amounts of distribution they've gotten globally, all it takes is one court or system or credit card company or whatever it might be to back down, you know, from either pursuing fault or legally, lawfully, or trying to impose some fictitious credit card debt or whatever, to say that they have some kind of legitimacy there. You know, and I blogged about a lot of those cases. People getting mortgages cleared, people getting credit cards cleared, student loans cleared, and people clearing their names in court and all of this stuff. Well, if there's no legitimacy to those filings, then that most likely wouldn't have happened. You know, for me personally, it's like, you know, I've had this conversation many times on Facebook and on the radio show that, you know, it's an empowerment tool. It doesn't take documents. It takes people standing in their power. Paperwork is irrelevant, really. You know, you get 100,000 people in one place to peacefully resist, you know, having their rights taken away from them. And that's a million times energetically and otherwise more powerful than any documents could ever be. You know, because it's ultimately people that band together and know something's not right, this isn't working anymore, I'm going to stand up for myself and I'm going to stand in my power. That's the change. That's where change comes. And that's exactly what has happened. And if the filings and the paperwork, if people need that tool that they can hold in their hands, that they can shake around and say it's because of this, then fine. I might do it with the same thing with a banana. It doesn't matter. It's a matter of empowerment. And from that level, they did exactly what they were supposed to do from my vantage point. And, you know, yeah, it's only natural that people are going to want to know. Is there an agenda behind them? They're going to start picking apart and looking at the words that were used, creator and bondservant, and start to look at it through a different perspective, through a different set of lens, to think that maybe there's something else going on there. But that doesn't take away the empowerment that has come as a result. And I think that's one of the major messages that I've been trying to get across, even before all this went exactly. Down.
I've said it multiple times that the courtesy notices were a tool of incredible power. And they have made incredible amounts of changes, even so much as just rattling the cage and giving notice to those in charge of, yeah, no, we're not buying this anymore. And I've said for a year and a half now, all the people who sent out courtesy notices to me are heroes. Because each and every one of those that went out all over the world, and we know that there were literally millions of courtesy notice sent out globally.
Which wasn't part of the plan. Right?
Which was never part of the plan. That was, like I said, that was something that was picked up by the Bartles and by Chris Hales, and they put it together and and now it was moved forward by them being inspired by the documents. But maybe they would have found inspiration through something else anyway.
Well, actually,
they were the inspiration behind it. Something that has made radical
anyway.
Scott
had already created that anyway as a result of his the FUQ.
Yeah.
All he did was change the references in it to refer to the filings.
Yeah.
So
you have this global tool that went out, and people will look at it and say, well, I still lost my case, I still lost my house, or I didn't get my loans wiped out, etc. And for a lot of people that is true. But they had an exceptional effect throughout the banking and legal industry.
But so did people who followed
were in each individual case or the bailiffs, etc. They still had a very direct effect, and the effect was people standing up all at once, all united, saying no more.
I actually wrote to the court with the filings asking for X, Y, and Z, and I got a letter back from the judge. No comment.
Yeah, that was funny. I forgot about that.
No comment.
Yeah, no comment was their comment.
That's a pretty big comment.
We said multiple times on the radio shows throughout 2013 that if you need a piece of paper to know that you're free, then no piece of paper is going to do it. The documents are either, I can't even remember the words we used, but basically, they're kind of irrelevant in terms of the empowerment to your own personal freedom. You either know that inherently or you don't. And if reading those documents helps you embody that and helps you really embrace that, then great. Read them out loud, read them over and over again. But the documents don't make you free. You were always free. It's just whether or not you knew it and embraced it and lived it and acted on it. And a lot of us found the empowerment, the guts to do that through the wording of those documents. And they were timed beautifully, right at the end of 2012.
I wanted to ask one more quick question. And I'm not asking for speculation here, but as a journalist, once you've ruled everything else out, whatever is left must be truth. With that in mind, you guys are all very intelligent, incredibly intelligent people at the cutting edge of cutting edge information. So you must have put some pieces together and, without speculating too much, I'd really just like to get an idea of who and what you think Heather Tucci is, what her agenda was, and if you're willing to talk about that a little before we finish.
I don't know if there's any way we can talk about it. That isn't speculation, because we don't have any facts. We really don't. And I wish we did, because we've walked away from the last 2 years of our lives with more questions than answers. And there's no way of getting answers.
We do know that she's highly, highly connected. In the banking world, in the legal world, highly connected, right? I mean, if there hadn't been such stories and such connections, none of us would be here 2 years on. She lived the life. It was like she was born for this job, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, she
what
was.
This job is still a question.
Yeah.
That's why, unfortunately I can't respond to that because it would be purely speculation and
Based on opinion.
based on my own opinion. And really, I don't know. I haven't drawn those conclusions. I know that data will come when it's time. I mean, it could be anything. She could be completely pure in intent. Those documents could be completely legitimate, but she just has an issue with consistency and walking the walk, and maybe issues with being untruthful, not being transparent. And those could be just human issues. That's a possibility. There could be some other major agenda that hasn't made itself clear yet. That's just not where I'm focused for me personally right now, because I know that information, when it needs to come out, will come out in its own way and in its own time. And I try to avoid pushing timing or over-hypothecating to try to force answers when the enough data to speculate just isn't quite there yet. And so that's just personally where I'm at with that particular question in general.
One of the things that I said in the Skype room where we've been discussing a lot of this very openly, anything that I'm fighting with the dog at the moment behind Brian's back while I'm having this conversation. We can only give our perspective based on our experiences. But it is only our perspective, and it is based on experiences that are viewed through our own perspective. That does not make our perspective accurate. In some ways, it does not mean that I can come out and say, well, this, and this, and therefore I draw this conclusion, because it's still based from my perspective. And I can fully admit that my perspective is, at this point, and has been, colored by anger and hurt. So I'm not willing to draw a conclusion while that set of glasses is still on. All I can say is, we're moving forward.
By the way, I think I just accidentally made up a word. I said hypothecate, and I don't think that's a word. I meant hypothesize. And you just called me intelligent a minute ago, and I know a lot of people are going to call me on that, so I got to clear the air real quick. I'm not trying to make up Brian.
Hypothecate, I do believe, is a word. It just wasn't the right one.
Yeah, I was going to say, you had me fooled. I thought that was a real word.
Quick, get me a dictionary.
You just exposed yourself there, Brian, not before. Okay, guys, I think that's pretty much it. And you know what? You've given a beautifully positive perspective and very emotionally mature outlook on the whole thing, considering how much all of you have sacrificed in the journey that you've been on. And what I would say, it's given me a lot of inspiration as to the collective creative power that the One Network is going to bring. And I certainly look forward to what's coming up from you guys next.
Thank you, Mel.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
We'll be talking again real soon, I know this.
Oh, yes, you will. All right, guys, I'm going to end this off. This has been a beautiful conversation.
Okay, bye for now. Thank you.
All right. Love you lots. Take care and all the best. Speak soon.
You too.